In the United States, tens of thousands of people each year who have fully paid off their homes can still lose them. Not because of banks, but because of property taxes. For retirees living on fixed incomes, this is no longer a cost, but a risk of losing their place to live. The paradox lies here. The longer you live in your home, the higher the risk of losing it, as assessed values rise while income does not. The question has been openly raised. If every year you still have to pay in order to stay in a home you have already paid off, is that ownership, or is it simply renting from the government? And this time, the debate does not stop at words. 10 states are taking action through legislation, real money, and voters' ballots to bring property taxes to zero. This video examines the 10 states doing exactly that. Is your state on the list that is redefining what home ownership means in America? 10. Mississippi. Taxes frozen by age. As of the 2024-early 2025 period, Mississippi is not the loudest state when it comes to eliminating property taxes. But that very quietness is what makes it one of the clearest examples of how taxes can move very close to zero in practice, especially for retirees. In Mississippi, all homeowners receive a homestead exemption, but the key provision applies to those aged 65 and older. Once you qualify, the assessed value of your home is frozen, not reduced once, not a temporary benefit, but locked in at the moment you cross that age threshold. Market home prices may rise by 50%, even double over real estate cycles, but your property tax bill does not move. And the numbers here are striking. The average property tax in Mississippi is just over $1,000 per year, while the national average exceeds $3,000. After the assessment freeze, many older households pay only a few $100s per year, and that figure never increases. Zero here is not a political statement, but a very concrete experience when you open your tax bill envelope. The philosophy behind this policy has also been stated quite plainly. Mississippi's state treasurer has emphasized that the goal of the assessment freeze is to ensure that seniors are not taxed to the point where they are forced to leave their own homes. This is not a call to abolish taxes, but a clear boundary. Taxes must not become a tool that pushes elderly residents out of the communities they have been part of their entire lives. Mississippi does not eliminate taxes through a sweeping bill or a controversial vote. It does so through risk management for retirees. Zero here does not mean absolutely no taxes, but rather no longer facing the risk of losing your home simply because you have lived in it too long. Of course, this model also has limits. Mississippi still relies on property taxes for local government budgets, and freezing assessments for a large segment of the population means the burden does not disappear, it is redistributed. But what matters is this. Retirees are no longer on the front line of that risk. There is one sentence that sums up Mississippi. Here, time is no longer the homeowner's enemy. And if Mississippi chooses to freeze in order to protect, then the next state on the list reveals a completely different and darker side of property taxes, where long-term attachment to one's home becomes a real financial risk. 9. Pennsylvania. The longer you stay, the closer you get to losing your home. If Mississippi shows that property taxes can be controlled through technical mechanisms, Pennsylvania represents the opposite end of the spectrum, where property taxes have become a systemic issue rather than a personal one. As of the 2024-early 2025 period, Pennsylvania remains among the states most heavily dependent on property taxes to fund local schools. Nearly 50% of the state's K-12 education budget comes directly from property taxes. When home values rise but residents' incomes, especially those of retirees, do not keep pace. The consequences become starkly visible. Each year, approximately 10,000 homes are foreclosed on, not because of mortgage default, but because homeowners cannot afford their property taxes. In response to this reality, the most recent proposals in the state legislature have gone straight to the most sensitive core of the issue. A bipartisan group of lawmakers is pushing a plan to completely eliminate property taxes used for school funding, replacing them with an approximately 2% statewide sales tax increase and the introduction of a small local income tax. The goal is not to abolish taxes at any cost, but to redistribute the burden of education across society as a whole, rather than concentrating it on homeowners. However, the financial obstacles are substantial. Critics and school districts warn that replacing a stable revenue source like property taxes with sales and income taxes could lead to serious budget instability for schools, especially during economic downturns. This is why similar efforts have failed for decades. Politicians are reluctant to be held responsible if educational quality declines. State Senator Don Kiefer, a supporter of the bill, put it very succinctly during a legislative hearing. No one should lose the home they spent their entire life paying for because of a single life event. This statement accurately reflects the spirit of the current debate in Pennsylvania. Zero in Pennsylvania remains a distant goal. The budgetary risks to school funding are real, and this is a difficult problem to solve. But what matters is this. The state has acknowledged that the current model is causing harm and is seeking to change it at its roots. Pennsylvania today. Here, loyalty to one's community has become a financial risk. 8. Louisiana. Eliminating taxes starting from the first dollar. If Pennsylvania is debating how to replace an entire tax collection system, Louisiana approaches the issue in a far simpler and more direct way. Eliminating taxes through exemptions applied from the very first dollar of a home's value. As of the 2024-early 2025 period, Louisiana continues to maintain one of the strongest homestead exemption policies in the United States. The first $75,000 of a home's value is completely exempt from property taxes. This is especially significant in a state where median home prices in many areas remain relatively low. For many retirees, particularly in rural parishes, the taxable portion of a home's value after the exemption is effectively zero. This mechanism creates zero in a very tangible way. Not a promise, not a long-term roadmap, but a simple tax bill with no amount due. Once a homeowner turns 65, the remaining assessed value is further frozen, making the risk of taxes increasing over time nearly disappear. What stands out in Louisiana is that zero is not promoted as a political slogan. It exists quietly within the tax structure. A member of the State House Tax Committee once put it plainly: the homestead exemption exists so that taxes do not exceed people's ability to pay, especially those with fixed incomes. This is not a controversial statement, but a principle of risk management. Louisiana demonstrates an important point. Zero does not necessarily require abolishing the entire tax system. It can be achieved by eliminating the portion that causes the most harm. In exchange, the state continues to generate revenue from higher value properties and from other forms of taxation. Louisiana can be summed up in one sentence. Here, property taxes disappear before they ever have the chance to become a concern. And from a technical exemption-based model like Louisiana's, the next state will show a very different path, eliminating taxes by removing the state government's role from the tax bill altogether. 7. Florida, the courtroom of ownership. If Louisiana shows that zero can be achieved through technical exemptions, Florida is where property taxes are being debated most openly, reaching even the constitutional level. As of the 2024 early 2025 period, Florida is considering multiple proposals to sharply reduce or eliminate non-school-related property taxes on primary residences. The political message has been stated plainly. Governor Ron DeSantis has posed the question directly. You've paid off your home, so why do you still have to pay every year just to live in it? That question has turned property taxes into a debate about the very nature of ownership. But zero in Florida is far from simple. Property taxes currently account for more than 1/3 of local government revenue, totaling tens of billions of dollars. Economists and city governments warn of a double risk if cuts move forward. First, public safety risk. Deep cuts could create immediate budget gaps, directly threatening funding for police, fire departments, and emergency medical services. Second, barriers for new buyers. Home prices could rise an additional 7% if property taxes are eliminated, unintentionally creating serious obstacles for first-time homebuyers, an ironic consequence of a policy intended to help homeowners. To pass these constitutional changes, a 60% approval vote statewide is required, an exceptionally high threshold. Florida is not yet a place where zero is guaranteed to happen, but it is where the question is posed most clearly. Do you want the feeling of full ownership or a stable public service system as it exists today? That decision will most likely belong to the voters. 6. Alabama. Taxes disappear at the state level. If Florida is still locked in heated debate over whether property taxes should be reduced, Alabama has quietly done something very specific, completely eliminating state-level property taxes for residents aged 65 and older. As of the 2024 early 2025 period, Alabama remains among the states with the lowest property taxes in the United States. The average annual bill is only about $650, far below the national average. Once seniors are exempt from the state portion of property taxes, the remaining bill comes only from local governments, and those amounts are already very low. In addition, seniors receive a local property tax exemption of up to $4,000 in assessed value on their homes. What matters is that this exemption is layered on top of already low assessed values. In practice, many senior households pay only a few $100s per year, and that amount rarely increases in any meaningful way. Zero in Alabama does not come from dismantling the entire tax system, but from removing the specific layer of taxation that creates the greatest pressure. This allows retirees to maintain stability even when their incomes no longer grow. State officials have been explicit about this approach. The Alabama Department of Revenue has stated that tax exemptions for seniors are intended to ensure that those who have contributed their entire lives are not pushed out of their homes by taxes. This is not a political slogan, but a risk management priority. Alabama offers an important lesson. Zero does not have to mean eliminating everything. Sometimes, simply removing the role of the state government is enough for the greatest risk to disappear. Property taxes become small enough that they no longer control the lives of retirees. 5. Ohio. The uprising from the tax bill. When people no longer wait for the government to make adjustments, they stand up and change the rules themselves. As of the 2024 early 2025 period, Ohio has seen sharp increases in assessed property values across many counties. It is not uncommon for homeowners to receive new tax bills, showing increases of 30, 40, or even more than 50% in a single year, even though their incomes have not changed at all. For retirees living on fixed incomes, this is no longer a technical adjustment, but a direct shock to their ability to keep their homes. It is precisely this speed of increase that became the trigger setting off a chain reaction. A citizen-led movement formed with the goal of collecting more than 400,000 valid signatures to place a proposal to eliminate property taxes on a statewide ballot. It did not wait for the state legislature to act first, did not rely on any specific political party, but went directly to the voters. This is rare in large-scale tax reform efforts. What sets Ohio apart is that Zero did not begin at a policy table, but with ordinary homeowners, many of them seniors, who for the first time had to consider selling their homes simply to pay taxes. In this case, the tax bill itself became a political catalyst. However, the barriers are enormous. Collecting enough signatures within the required time frame is a massive administrative challenge for a movement not funded by major lobbying groups. Moreover, Governor Mike DeWine has acknowledged that the pace of reassessments is creating real pressure, even as he warned that completely eliminating property taxes could pose serious risks to local government budgets. This is a high-risk, high-impact scenario. Critics call it reckless, warning that abruptly removing a major funding source could directly threaten police, fire departments, and schools. But for supporters, this is a fight over private property rights, where the government should not have the power to take away assets that people have fully paid for. Zero in Ohio may not succeed, but it has already forced the system to confront a clear reality. When taxes rise faster than people's ability to adapt, resistance is inevitable. Here, the tax bill has become a political ballot. 4. South Carolina, Zero by removing the pain point. For many retirees in South Carolina, the moment of relief does not come from winning the lottery or selling a home at a high price. It comes on the day they open their tax bill and realize that most of what they used to owe is gone. What sets South Carolina apart is not a grand promise, but a very specific decision. The state implemented a dual-trigger defusing strategy. First, it eliminates property taxes used to fund public schools on primary residences. In practice, this portion often accounts for the majority, over 60%, of the total property tax bill. When that part is removed, many homeowners feel one thing very clearly: the annual weight is no longer pressing on their chest. Second, the first $50,000 of a home's value is fully exempt from property taxes once the homeowner turns 65. That number may sound technical, but its impact is very real. For moderately valued homes, the remaining taxable portion becomes so small that the tax bill is no longer an annual source of dread. South Carolina does not call this eliminating taxes, nor does it promote it with sweeping slogans. But in real life, many retirees describe the feeling in the same way, no longer fearing what will happen each time home values rise. Once the largest portion of the tax burden is removed, the remaining fluctuations become manageable. What is notable is that this approach does not cause the system to collapse. The state retains the revenue it needs, while the greatest risk faced by those living on fixed incomes has been diffused. Zero in South Carolina does not mean everything disappears. It means the most dangerous part disappears first. South Carolina can be summed up in one sentence. Here, zero is not a promise for everyone, but a lifeline for those who no longer have the ability to fight back. If concise but in-depth analysis like this brings value to you, please like the video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss future updates on the changes unfolding in the U.S. housing market. And from this approach of removing the pain point, the next state goes even further, cutting taxes earlier than retirement age and turning tax benefits into an open competition to attract retirees. 3. Georgia. Zero begins before retirement age. In many states, all tax relief begins only once you turn 65. But in Georgia, the story is different. Here, property taxes begin to decline while many people are still working. For a 62-year-old homeowner in Georgia, the pivotal moment is not retirement day, but the day school taxes disappear from the property tax bill. In many counties, residents aged 62 and older are exempt from school-related property taxes on their primary residence. And this is no small matter. In most counties, school taxes account for 60 to 70% of the total property tax bill. That means that in a single year, the majority of the burden is removed. No need to wait until age 65. No need to wait for Social Security. Zero in Georgia starts earlier, right at the stage when many people are preparing to transition from earned income to fixed income. The second difference lies in how counties compete with one another. In some places, exemptions apply only starting at age 65. In others, the age threshold is lower and the allowable income limit is much higher, reaching nearly $100,000 per year in some counties. This creates a quiet competition. The county with better benefits attracts more retirees. When combined with the fact that Georgia does not tax Social Security benefits and exempts most retirement income, the picture becomes very clear. Retirees not only pay less tax, but they know in advance when they will start paying less. For many people, that certainty is more important than the absolute number. Georgia can be summed up in one sentence. Here, zero does not wait for you to grow old. It arrives when you begin to need it most. And from a state where relief starts early, the next state will show a completely different strategy. Not gradual reductions, not competition, but using real money to freeze tax bills for many consecutive years. 2. Texas, the state that lets you stop paying. In Texas, many people arrive chasing the dream of low taxes, but when the first property tax bill shows up, that dream often shatters quickly. Home values rise, taxes rise with them, and every year brings a new round of anxiety. But for those aged 65 and older, Texas opens a different door, not by eliminating taxes outright, but by freezing them. Once you qualify, the amount of school property tax you owe is locked in and will never increase again, even if your home's value continues to climb. Time, the very thing that usually makes tax bills balloon, suddenly stands still. What makes Texas truly different lies in a detail few people notice: the right to defer payment of all property taxes. Seniors can file to stop paying property taxes entirely for as long as they live in the home. There are no penalties, no foreclosure. The taxes are only paid when the home is sold or transferred. For many retirees, this creates a very unique situation. No annual tax bills, no pressure to sell the house early. Zero in Texas is not elimination on paper, but zero in monthly cash flow. Texas can be summed up in one sentence. Here, you don't escape taxes, but you escape the fear that taxes create. And from freezing time itself, the final state will show something even rarer. Zero does not require waiting because the money is already there. 1. North Dakota, the state that pays for you. North Dakota does not argue much. It does not make loud promises either. Instead, it puts a very practical question on the table. If the money already exists, why should people still worry about losing their homes because of taxes? The state holds an oil-funded asset pool worth more than $11 billion, and the fund's annual investment returns alone are sufficient to significantly reduce or gradually eliminate property taxes on primary residences. The plan is clearly laid out. Steadily increase property tax rebates for homeowners, step by step bringing tax bills down to zero, without raising other taxes and without cutting public services. For retirees, this is not theory. It is the feeling of no longer having to calculate how many more years they can afford to hold on. Zero in North Dakota does not rely on shifting the burden elsewhere. It relies on a source of money that already exists and continues to generate returns. North Dakota can be summed up in one sentence. Here, zero is not a slogan, it is a calculation. And that is why North Dakota ranks number 1. Not because it talks the loudest, but because it is one of the rare places with enough money to turn zero into reality without collapsing the system. Ket 10 states, 10 different approaches, but all converge on one core question. Do you truly own your home or not? Zero is no longer a slogan. It has become real decisions, backed by real money and real consequences. No matter where you live, these changes will eventually spread. If your state is not yet on the list, the only question is when. If this video has helped you see more clearly what lies behind your annual property tax bills, share it and let us know. Where does your state stand in this game?